You wake up early, before the sun rises. Grab your coffee mug. Tie your boots before climbing into your pickup to start the day. Most people are still sleeping, but you are not most people. You are the paver who built the road that will carry buses to school. You are the builder who volunteered your time and materials to help rebuild the ball field, where our kids learn the importance of teamwork. And the electrician who tied the energy source to the hospital, where lives will be saved today. When contractors are moving, our state is growing stronger. The Associated General Contractors of Maine has had your back since 1951. Our team continues to work to strengthen investment in our vital infrastructure, to guarantee safety training is a priority, and to educate young Mainers on construction career paths that end with a well-earned retirement. Look for our logo on a job site near you and learn more about AGC Maine, including the many benefits of membership at agcmaine.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage President John Smith.
Wow, how about that video, you guys? Isn't that great? Good stuff. So tonight, good evening. We're going to we get the very exciting and long anticipated Road to the Blaine House debate. Before we kick it off, we've got a couple of housekeeping items. We're actually going to shift a few things around because we've got some hard stop times at 6, so we're going to change things up a little bit. But I'd like to start by thanking, actually, if you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is right over there, so please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I'd like to start by thanking today's event partner, Machias Savings Bank. I had the opportunity to meet with Elsa, Matthew, and Chris from Machias Savings Bank last week, where they communicated their commitment to building vibrant and thriving communities from one corner of the state to the other. Today we are pleased to have Executive Vice President of Business Banking for Machias Savings Bank, Chris Fitzpatrick, to come up and say a few words. Please join me in welcoming Chris.
Thank you very much, John. It's a privilege to be here with this crowd and to be on this stage with these folks. First of all, what I would like to say is that I am not running for governor for our exceptional state. Nor, to my knowledge, is anyone from Machias Savings Bank running for governor. It is, however, a blue moon, so you never know. We are, however, fully invested in Maine's future, as we have been for the last 150 years. And we're proud to be a sponsor and, more importantly, a partner with the Associated General Contractors of Maine. Although by definition we are a financial institution, we think of ourselves as builders. Builders of companies, builders of communities, and builders of value. In fact, in addition to over $1.2 billion in loans, 900 million of that is in commercial lending, plus we have over $1 billion in deposits, supported by the largest team of cash management specialists of any bank in the state. We contributed over $700,000 and 10,590 hours of volunteer time to building and improving worthy causes last year. We understand the construction business. It's a priority for us, and we're exceptionally good at supporting it. From one person with a dump truck and a dream to one of the most successful companies in Maine, Sargent Corporation, we bank on building in Maine every day. And this iconic building that we're in tonight, we're proud to say we help make this a reality too, by listening to Chris Thompson's dream, believing in his vision, and providing the construction loan and the permanent financing for this incredible Portland landmark. As you all know, there's a lot of work coming down the pipe, both state, federal, and private. We want to help you get that work. From unparalleled cash management to equipment loans to opening our Rolodexes, we have the skills and the tools to help you build your business while you're out there building the other stuff. We know you guys make Maine more exceptional every day. We have that same mission. Let's talk about what we can build together. You will see several of the Machias savings bankers around the room, and I hope that we all have an opportunity to chat with you before the night's over. So thank you, and enjoy the debate.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your membership in our association and for your support for the construction industry. So I also would like to thank our other sponsors for tonight, of which we have many. We're very appreciative. Cross Insurance, Landry and French Construction, Milton Cat, Chimbro Corporation, Lane Construction, CCB Construction Services, Pike Industries, United Rentals, CPM Constructors, and Shaw Brothers Construction. So just so we're clear, these companies wrote checks which are necessary for tonight's program to occur. So if you get a chance, I'd encourage you to thank these companies personally during the social hour. And please join me in thanking them now. So we have a little association business. I think I mentioned we're going to put that after debate. So moving forward, 8 years ago, AGC Maine held a debate with 13 candidates on one stage to kick off the road to the Blaine House. Today, we are repeating the event and excited to hear how our state government will continue to move forward. So without delay, I'd like to introduce our debate host. He is serving in his final term in the Maine Senate. He is a partner in the Augusta law firm of Lippman and Cates. He went to Harvard and Boston University Law School. And most impressively of all, he was part of the 1973 Coney High School State Championship basketball team. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our debate host, Senator Roger Cates. And just one sec. Actually, before I hand over the podium, I need to pass off to you your own personal AGC Maine hard hat, and our hope is that you won't need it tonight as a moderator, but I think it'd actually be pretty exciting if you did. So,
thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks so much. Thank you. I won't need this tonight, but we have session tomorrow, and I think it's going to come in handy. So, thank you. It was 1967, not 1973, but who's counting? So thank you very much, and thank you for the great honor of chairing this debate today. My name is Roger Cates, and beginning with the primaries in June and extending into the November general election, we will complete the process of selecting Maine's next governor and our first new governor in 8 years. So I think that the number of people here today is a testament to how important that decision is, because the winner will play a huge role in helping shape our state's future. So today's event will give us all an opportunity to hear from 10 contenders for this office and to see them up close and personal. I know every one of these candidates. They are all very accomplished in their own right, and they are all dedicated to the concept of public service. So let me explain the ground rules we're going to go through today, which have been set by the association. First of all, each of the candidates will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves in opening statements, and we will then go into a series of questions for the candidates. These questions have been selected by the Associated General Contractors, except for the last two, which I picked myself. The candidates will each have 1 minute to answer each question. We will then go to a rapid fire round of yes or no questions, and please, ladies and gentlemen, that yes or no if you could. And we will then return to a second round of questions with a 1 minute response, and then a final round of those yes or no questions. We will vary the order of the candidates answering each of the questions. The candidates will have an opportunity to make a 1 minute closing at the end. and then we'll be done and on to the social hour. So as you'll be able to see, all of the questions and a countdown will appear in the monitors in front of the candidates, but also behind me. And when the time expires, ladies and gentlemen, if you could please wrap up. And if you don't, I will gently remind you to please conclude. And if you really go over, John Smith's going to come back with a front-end loader and forcibly remove you from the stage. I should also say that if another candidate mentions or refers to someone here on the stage, and I decide it requires a response from that person, we'll allow 15 seconds for that. For ease of moving things along, if nobody objects, I'm going to, after introductions, refer to everybody by their first name. And again, we'll vary the order of answering questions. By the way, during the 1-minute questions, we actually have a number of video questions that will be presented by members of the association that have been pre-taped. I can assure you, everyone, that the questions about to be asked have not been shared with any of the candidates before today or their representatives. Okay, we got the pregame out of the way, and it's about time for kickoff. So first, let me introduce the 10 people on the stage, and if you could please hold your applause to the end, and then we'll get started with opening statements. First of all, to your far left, State Senator Mark Dion, a Democrat. Next to Mark, Democrat Adam Cody, a veteran and energy attorney. Next, Republican Ken Fredette, a minority leader in the Maine House of Representatives. Next, Janet Mills, Attorney General of the state. Next, Mike Thibodeau, the Senate President. To my left, Mary Mayhew, former Commissioner of Health and Human Services. Terry Hayes, Mary's a Republican, as is Mike. To her left, Independent Terry Hayes, the State Treasurer. Next, Republican Sean Moody, businessman. Next, Democrat Mark Eves, former Speaker of the House of Representatives. And finally, Independent Alan Caron, a small businessman and author. So again, we're going to start off with 2-minute, you can cheer for all of them now. Okay. And we will start off with 2-minute opening statements. We'll start with, to my far right, Senator Mark Dion. Mark?
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Dion. I'm a state senator for Portland and Westbrook. I'm in my first term in the Senate, and I currently act as the lead senator on energy and utilities. I've served there for 6 years, having also been the House chair. I grew up in Lewiston. I came to Portland, joined the police department, served for 21 years, left as deputy chief. And at the time, I wasn't sure what was going to happen to me, but I was recruited to run as sheriff. I served in that capacity for 12 years. It's a tough job. You've got to manage law enforcement across the county, and then you have 600 clients that you're responsible for in your facility. I had to get a $20 million budget approved by 28 different municipalities. So that proves a good foundation for my later work in the legislature. During that time, I attended the University of Maine, received a bachelor's degree. While I was a cop, I got my master's in administration. And then later on, as sheriff, I went to law school. I was an experimental student. They wanted to explore part-time studies. So I was their guinea pig and made it through in 4 years. Then I went on to the John F. Kennedy School to study postgraduate work in government relations. My dad was a career firefighter, union man. That's a perspective that was shared with me growing up. My brother is a Republican, which makes for interesting Thanksgiving conversation. And he's the chief operating officer of a major excavation company in Boston. He builds subway tunnels and bridges. And he often told me, I built the streets and I hit the streets. And we've had debates that in order for the work that I want to see accomplished happen, he has to be able to do his work, make it successful, create salaries, and move the economy forward. So as a Democrat, I'm clearly aware that there's a balance to our government sheet. One side has to be the economy, and the other side is to make sure that the economy can work.
Mark, if you could conclude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Adam Cody.
Thanks, Roger, and thanks AGC for putting this on. My name is Adam Cody. Quick piece on me, born and raised in Sanford, still live there with my wife and our 5 kids. Come from a big Franco family. My Pepe had 16 brothers and sisters. My Meme had 11. So we're feeling pretty good about doing well in York County, if we can get them to vote. I've got a background in public policy and business and law and in the military. I've served in local school boards, statewide boards. Most of my background on the legal and business sides in the clean energy space. I've worked in renewable energy, energy storage for the better part of my life. Spent 21 years in the Maine Army National Guard. Retired about a month ago, and I had 3 combat deployments in Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And I don't have my CE license, but the Army did call me a combat engineer. We didn't need the license for that, but I was in charge of a vertical construction platoon in Iraq and a horizontal construction company in Afghanistan, so I'm familiar with, know my way around a job site. I'm running for governor because I believe we need to find a way to grow our economy, particularly in the rural areas and the mill towns. Folks like to say our unemployment is low, but the fact of the matter is our population isn't growing. We've got an aging population, and we've swapped sort of middle-class jobs with low-paying jobs. We're behind New England and behind the country with respect to job growth, economic growth, income growth. We rank 46 on investment, on infrastructure. I think we got to grow our economy, particularly in those areas. And I'm excited to have this discussion over infrastructure because it's a huge part of doing that. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. Next is Ken Fredette.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you to AGC. And like Adam, I come from a large French family as well. My father had 8 brothers and sisters, and my mother had 7. And so my Franco vote will come from Aroostook County, though. I was born in Holton, raised in a little small town called Danforth down on East Grand Lake, down in Washington County, population 600 people. I graduated from East Grand High School with 21 kids in my class, but I'll tell you this, I graduated valedictorian in my class. But I was fortunate, though. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. I had the opportunity to go down to the local university, the University of Maine at Machias, get an accounting degree, come down here to Portland at the Muskie School, got a master's degree from there, went to the University of Maine School of Law here in Maine for another 3 years, and then went back up to Newport, where I opened up a small solo law practice in Newport, Maine, where I currently represent in the Maine legislature. I also had an opportunity not too long ago to spend 2 years down at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, where I also got a master's degree. I'm also a lifelong Republican, principled Republican. It's not something that I came to recently. One of the things that I think we've done as the House Republicans over the last 8 years is stand up for those strong Republican values, which many of you do as business folks. It's not something I come to recently. But public service has been in my blood. I've served as a volunteer on a credit union for 20 years. I worked at Bath Iron Works, Maine's largest private employer when it was back in the early 1990s. And I also worked for the largest agency in the world. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Maine Air National Guard, where I could continue to serve as a judge advocate general. I want to run for governor because I believe it's important to really look at growing Maine together. If you look at York and Cumberland County, it's 60% of the economic activity in the state generally. But if you look at rural Maine continues to suffer. As someone who grew up in Aroostook County, Washington County, Penobscot County, I think I have the experience, having also lived in Portland for 5 years, to really bring Maine together. And so I look forward to this conversation, and I ask you for your vote for governor.
Thank you, Ken. Janet Mills.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Janet Mills. I'm the Attorney General for the state of Maine. I was born and raised in a large WASP family, sorry. We have 5 siblings, and from Farmington, Maine. I live in Farmington now. My grandparents were from Stonington, Farmington, Ashland, roots all over the 2nd District, for better or for worse, and it's an area of Maine where we've lost something like 2,400 paper-making jobs in the last 6 years, and that's something I want to address. Jobs and the economy has got to be foremost on any candidate's mind. I met and married my husband when I was district attorney of Lewiston, Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford counties. He was not a politician and not a lawyer, and he was a widower with 5 young daughters. So I brought them up through the teenage years. That was a struggle. I think if I can get through that, I can probably run state government. But we're all friends now. I have 4 grandchildren all in Maine, and I'm interested in helping them and your children and grandchildren have a state where they can live and prosper and grow their own families. I was raised in a Republican family. But all the women ultimately became Democrats, and the men, like my brother Peter, stayed a Republican. Go figure. I served in the legislature for 6 years while practicing law with my brother Peter in Western Maine. We represented small businesses and individuals in all sorts of legal matters. I served on the Appropriations Committee for 4 years in some of the toughest times of state government. We passed bond issues, including a major amendment to the historic tax credit bill, and allowed for affordable housing to gain access to that tax credit. A lot of things we did, and I want to talk about that later. But I'm running for governor because I firmly believe that the best chapter of this state's history is yet to be written. I want to run to be Maine's governor for the entire state of Maine, not just for one district or another district. I want to bring our people together and work with you to bring good-paying jobs to Maine and increase our workforce and face those challenges we have in housing, workforce development, research and development investments, and the like. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Mike Thibodeau.
And thank you, Roger. First thing I want to do is say thank you to Chris from Machias Savings Bank. You know, he said something that really touched me. He talked about a family with 1 dump truck and a dream. I've lived that dream. I've been that family that had 1 dump truck and a dream that we grew a small company from a single employee to one that had over 200 employees when we sold it in 2007. So thank you for what Machias Savings Bank does. I thought this morning I'd tell you a short story about my family, okay? My wife, Stacy, and I are very fortunate. We have 2 wonderful daughters. They're 27 and 28 years old now. And my oldest daughter, Megan, graduated from college. And her and her husband moved to Groton, Connecticut. Now, just a quick show of hands. Anybody want to move to Groton, Connecticut in this room? I don't see a single hand. You know why? Because nobody wants to move to Groton, Connecticut. Matter of fact, people have been trying to move out of Groton, Connecticut since 1705 during its inception, okay? The fact of the matter is they moved there because they wanted a good job, okay? And they lived there for several years. And nothing broke my heart anymore than to think that my grandson would grow up in Groton, Connecticut. And I don't think I'm any different than many of you. We all want our children and our grandchildren to grow up in Maine. So I'm very fortunate. My daughter and her husband were able to move back to Topsom, Maine. They found a terrific job, but far too many families don't have that same opportunity. I want to be Maine's next governor because I want to stay solely focused on one issue, the creation of good jobs so that everybody has that same opportunity that I enjoy to see my grandson grow up here in Maine rather than Groton, Connecticut.
Thank you, Mike. Mary Mayhew.
Good afternoon, and thank you, AGC. It's great to be here. My name is Mary Mayhew. I grew up in Pittsfield, Maine, and had the pleasure of watching Chimbro grow. I later babysat for Andy Vigue, so great to be in this crowd. I am running for governor because of what all of that represents. You know, my father worked for the Edwards Manufacturing Company. My mother worked as a nurse's aide at the Sebasticook Valley Hospital. And they instilled in me a commitment to the work ethic and what we all understand to be the dignity of work. And I know, as you do, that we have seen a deterioration in that work ethic in our state, and that many of you and many employers across our state and across our country are almost at a crisis level, desperate for employees, someone to show up on time, drug-free, and stay to the end of the day, and to come back the next. I'm running for governor because I am committed to restoring Maine's strong history of a work ethic. I believe in a much brighter economic future for our state. Now, I had the privilege to serve alongside Governor LePage for 6.5 years, running the state's largest agency, the Department of Health and Human Services, a $3.5 billion budget, over 3,400 employees. And what I know is that that agency had been gobbling up most of the state's resources and distorting our priorities. In order to rebuild our economy, we need to get government out of the way, out of people's paychecks, out of business accounts, and create an economy based upon good-paying jobs. I'm determined to protect our accomplishments and to aggressively lead Maine forward to a much brighter economic future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Terry Hayes.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I'm Terry Hayes. I'm a Portland native, but I've lived in Buckfield and Oxford County for the last 30 years. I'm running for governor because I have the experience, the independence, and the courage to unite Mainers, to fix the parts of the system that are broken and not working for us, and to lead our state in a bold new direction. I'm not a partisan. I'm a nonpartisan. As a political independent, I'm not on either side of the aisle. I'm standing in the aisle, bridging divides and bringing folks together to solve problems and maximize opportunities for Maine. Republicans, Democrats, and independents have twice elected me to serve as Maine's first independent state treasurer because they trust me to work with everyone, not to play favorites, and to get the job done. And that's exactly what I'll do as your next governor. As state treasurer, I've worked with Governor LePage and the legislature to put Maine's fiscal house in order. We're paying our bills on time with our own money. We're growing that rainy day fund that was mentioned earlier. I've also worked with Republicans, Democrats, and independents in the legislature to return record amounts of unclaimed property to Mainers. I believe that how we do things, particularly in our public service, matters. When I'm elected as Maine's next governor, I will stop campaigning on election night and transition to governing on day one. I will seek to hire the best and brightest talent to fill the positions in my administration, regardless of what party they belong to or whom they supported in the campaign. I'm inclusive, and I value others, especially when they disagree with me. My administration will focus on solving Maine's toughest challenges and making targeted investments that grow Maine's economy and improve the quality of life for all Maine people. I'm running as a clean elections candidate because Maine voters have twice supported that program. I look forward to answering your questions this afternoon and giving you further insight as to who I am and what kind of leader I will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Sean Moody.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you everyone here from AGC. My name's Sean Moody. I grew up in Gorham. I started tinkering on cars when I was about 13 years old. Found something I love to do. I tell people, follow your passion and you'll be successful. My mom was a hairdresser, raised the three of us as a single parent, which is difficult. She got into financial trouble and ended up actually being hospitalized for a short period of time. When she came home, we had to move from our home down to the trailer park on the other end of Gorham. So I kind of knew with mom with a physical condition and a financial condition, somebody's got to get ahead here. Somebody had to get ahead. So I got my job at the Corvette repair shop, started grinding out a living. At the age of 17, I actually started my own business, which is Moody's, what we've grown it to today. A little three-bay shop, it wasn't much. So I fell in love with cars, had a little success. At about 24, I fell in love again. I met my wife, Chrissy. Cars were easy when I met her. Got that figured out. We had 4 wonderful children, now young adults. I'm proud to say that Nate, our youngest, in 2 weeks is going to move into his home, that all 4 will be homeowners. So raise them right, break them in right, break them in young. We bought an auto salvage yard was kind of a junkyard. We transformed that into an auto recycling center that was actually one of the leading auto recyclers in the whole country. Traveled the entire country as a business improvement team to help other operators come up to our standards. I'm running for governor. You heard the lineup. One thing that probably struck you as it struck me, it's a one person as a business operator. I don't have any political background. I'm not a legislator, a lawyer, lobbyist. I'm just a business guy, just like you guys. So my perspective is driven through 40 years of being in business. I've experienced government from the top down. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Mark Eves.
Thank you, Senator Cates, and thank you, AGC, for hosting this evening. This is probably the first time and maybe the only time through this primary process that Democrats, Republicans, and independents are on the same stage. So I think it's a unique opportunity to hear from a whole host of folks. I'm Mark Eves. I'm running for governor. I first got into public service about 10 years ago in 2008 when I was going around York County and rural parts of York County, in towns like Newfield and Parsonsfield, working with families that were in a bit of trouble. I would drive out to their homes and down their long driveways, and I'd knock on their doors. And I'd never know what was on the other side. But I grew up in a pretty big family, the youngest of 7. My dad is a retired military chaplain after 35 years. My mom was a public school teacher, and they taught us a number of things, but the one thing that sticks in my head is you do not give up on people. So when I knocked on the door and I didn't know what was on the other side, I walked through. And I sat with those families that were going through some pretty tough things. Domestic violence, drug use, teenage daughter that hadn't shown up in 48 hours, parents were scared to death, and we sat together and we figured it out together. And I tell that story because I learned a lot about solving problems in those homes. And when I knocked on my first door in 2008 in a district that hadn't been held by a Democrat in nearly 40 years, the only thing I knew to do was talk to people and ask them what they wanted to see in their next elected official. I was very fortunate to be elected and re-elected three times. Half the time that I spent in the State House was as Speaker of the House. I worked with many of you in this room. I worked with many Republicans. Actually, Brad Farron welcomed me in the door. We worked on a mechanized logging training program together that helped rural Maine, help our logging community. That's the type of approach and leadership I think the state needs. I'm running for governor because my kids are growing up in a world, they're 13, 11, and 8. Where our political leaders are dividing us. If we're going to solve any of our problems, whether it's transportation, education, creating jobs, we're going to have to figure out how to do it together. I have a track record of doing that, and look forward to having that conversation with you. I'm running for governor, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And Alan Karen.
Thank you for inviting me. I grew up in poverty in the south end of Waterville in a family of mill workers and farmers. And like my folks before me and my uncles and aunts, I dropped out of school in the 9th grade to work with my hands. I loaded tractor-trailer trucks in the overnight shift. I worked at the Edwards Mill taking equipment apart that was being shipped south along with our jobs. I talked my way into a construction site with a promise that I knew everything about carpentry. You probably never heard anything like that before. Although I didn't know the difference between a T-square and a tomahawk. When I was 18, this is an unusual part of a gubernatorial candidate's story, I got on the wrong side of the law and ended up spending some months in the Wyndham Correctional Center. While I was there, I resolved to turn my life around, to climb the mountains that were ahead of me and to bring other people with me. Since then, I've built 2 small businesses. I've devoted my life to making Maine a better place, whether it was improving my neighborhood or building affordable housing, working on energy issues and the environment. I went to the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard and got a master's degree in public administration. And I've subsequently, for the last 15 years, devoted myself to understanding how to build a new prosperity in Maine. I've written 2 books on the subject, multiple series of columns. I've built 2 statewide nonprofits to help us figure out how to grow without wrecking the place. I want to do 3 things as your governor. One is build a bottom-up economy that focuses on the people who are actually doing things, not promising them. Second is to build a 21st century smarter government. And the third is to bring us all together, the best ideas and the best leaders from across the spectrum. and get the state moving forward.
Thank you, Alan. And that completes the opening statements. Now we're going to go to the questions. And again, this is a series of questions drafted by the association, and 1-minute responses, please, from each. The first one's the longest one. Elon Musk is out to change the world with his new ideas for transportation. His vision sparked new enthusiasm for autonomous cars and alternatives to gas-powered vehicles, including the U.S. giant auto companies. This month, Ford announced that they will invest $11 billion to develop 40 different electric vehicles for release by 2020. An independent transportation research group known as TRIP estimates that vehicle miles traveled will increase in Maine by 15% by 2030. That means more use of our road system with a significant reduction of income through our gas tax if we continue to improve vehicles. So the question for each of you, how will your administration adjust for that change? And will you explore a system like Oregon or California using a fee for miles traveled, increased tolls, or something else? And we'll start this round with Alan.
Oh, okay.
1 minute, please.
Look, I think we'll all have great ideas on what ought to happen. The question really is, what can we do? And I've looked at this issue for a long time. First off, here's what we can't do. We can't continue to rely on the system as we have over the last number of decades. The gas tax, if we tried to raise it tomorrow, efficiency will outpace it. We'll have to raise it again, and so on and so on. It's a spiral to nowhere. I think we have to find a mix of solutions. A little bit from here, a little bit from there. All of these ideas have to be explored. The key is that we have to think in new ways. And that has been a difficult thing for us to do. One of the things I've done over the last 5 years is bring together large groups like this across the state to tackle difficult issues, to listen to each other carefully, to be respectful of differences, and to safely explore how we move forward. And that's what we have to do on this issue.
Thank you, Alan. Mark?
Great, thank you, Senator Cates. I think we all know that electric vehicles are coming, and they're coming quickly. And figuring out how we're going to continue to pay for our roads is going to be a challenge for all of us. And I can guarantee you one thing, nobody's going to like the solution. But that doesn't mean you don't go after it. So for me, I would like to look at a pilot program like California, Oregon, where you do pay per mile. Now, I know that's not very popular, maybe amongst environmental groups. Raising the gas tax might not be popular in another group. But it does need to be a mix of things. And I think we have to start by really understanding what we need, first of all. We have been bonding $1 million per year. We will continue to do that in my administration, but we have to figure out different solutions. And I think the pay per mile is one that I would like to take a look at to try to supplement some of the lost revenue so that we can continue to build our roads and bridges and the infrastructure that we need.
Thank you. Sean?
Well, I think the overarching question is how are we going to continue to fund our highways and our infrastructure? And it's got to be a priority. Right down at the local level, we all know it. What's the first thing that gets cut when the mill rate gets pressured in your local towns? Paving, right? Culverts, road construction. It's easy hanging fruit. I believe we can take a lot of money out of the duplication and redundancy that we have, take the cost out. Peter Mills is here. We need to merge the Maine Turnpike Authority with the DOT. We can save, I think that building cost $14 million. Pete, I know you got a nice office up there, but we need to take our infrastructure, our buildings, our local, put them back on the local tax rolls. So it's not a matter of getting rid of the plow trucks and the people, the maintenance or the condition of the road, is taking our infrastructure. The 20th century was do less and get paid more. The 21st century is you better find a way to do more with less. And that's the way we do it in private enterprise.
Thank you. Terry.
Thank you, Senator Cates. Clearly, we have to solve the financial problem, but I don't want you to forget about the other aspect of this. Right now, there are a whole series of professional drivers who are going to need to be looking for other work as automation takes over that part of the transportation industry. And I think we need to be looking at that part from a workforce development piece. I also think we already have some ideas on the table. I know Representative McLean, chair of the Transportation Committee has a bill that looks at a variety, not one particular funding stream, but recognizing that all users, regardless of what vehicle they're driving, have a responsibility. There's no free lunch. We're all going to have to chip in order to solve this problem. And I think looking at the mixture or the combination that he's come up with is a good starting point. We're not starting from a blank sheet of paper at this point. I also think ultimately it's a shared responsibility, and if that means some shared pain, we're all going to pay for it because we all benefit from it.
Mary.
When I'm governor, investing in our infrastructure and taking care of our roads and bridges will be an absolute top priority. We have been neglecting that investment, which is absolutely critical to our economic recovery. We know that today we have an annual shortfall of over $150 million in just the maintenance of our roads and bridges. For any of you or any of us who've ever tried to get out of the city of Portland at 4:30 in the afternoon know what an absolute parking lot that is. If we hope to attract businesses and to keep businesses in this state, we've got to be prepared to make those critical investments. I oversaw the agency that was growing and hemorrhaging red ink for years. I've made the tough decisions. I know what it takes to prioritize, and we've got to balance our needs to invest in infrastructure and make the tough decisions to prioritize our limited tax dollars to grow our economy and make that commitment to infrastructure.
Mike.
And thank you, Senator Case. Look, first of all, everybody needs to be part of paying for our highways. So if we have technologies that come forward that aren't paying in through a gas tax, we've got to figure out a way to make sure that they're contributing. But nobody on the stage understands the importance of infrastructure jobs more than I do, okay? The work that you all are doing to build Maine's roads and highways is incredibly important. But I think we ought to celebrate just a little bit about some of our accomplishments. It was only in 2012 that for the first time in decades, the debt service on Maine's bonding came from the general fund. That was a tremendous accomplishment. That means that there are more dollars available from the transportation fund to go towards highways. And we actually paid for the debt service for hundreds of millions of dollars from the general fund. That is a tremendous accomplishment and goes a long way towards fixing our problem. Doesn't mean that we don't need more. We're still falling $60 million short every year of meeting our strategic goal, but we're gaining.
Mary, excuse me, Janet.
Whoa, thank you. Just because my name tag fell down doesn't mean I changed it. Thank you. The answer is yes. I would explore a system like Oregon, California. I think in Germany, they have a fee per mile travel because they have the Autobahn, the famous Autobahn now. That might engage people, induce people to fool around with their odometers a bit more than usual. That might give Sean some more business. But there are other options too. I mean, excise taxes on electric vehicles, that's being considered by the legislature right now. Other sorts of excise taxes. Tolls on highways is being considered in other states. I think that the situation will become acute when, not this year or next year, but very soon, when trucks are electric vehicles. More and more trucks will be electric vehicles. And then we're going to see an even bigger impact on reduction of the sales of the gas tax. And that's where it's going to come to a head. And so we've got to explore all options. I'm not married to one particular. I'm not married to rolling over the Maine Turnpike Authority into the DOT either.
Ken.
Thank you, Roger, and I'm going to get to that in just a second, but you know, Sean Moody said he's not a lawyer, a lobbyist, or a legislator, and you know what? I live in a district that's 70% free and reduced lunch. I spent 45 minutes on the phone last week with a client of mine who called me who was delusional, said she had to go to the hospital because she had pneumonia, didn't know how to get there, didn't even know her own address. I spent 45 minutes on the phone with her to try to get her to the hospital because that's real people that have real problems in rural Maine, and I appreciate the fact that we have to do that. And as a legislator, those folks that are up here, is $10,000, $15,000 a year is what we make to do this job. And so you know what, I'm proud of both of those things. In regards to funding roads, this job is all about priorities, folks. What are we going to spend our money on? That's the basic question. Are we going to expand Medicaid? Are we going to continue to expand services, raise taxes? I mean, we can do this. We've spent $100 million a year in bonding for about the last 5 or 6 years to help build bridges and roads, and we shouldn't be doing that with bonding money. And so we need to make tough decisions, and that's about making priority decisions.
Adam.
Thank you. While highway and transportation funding has remained consistent throughout the recession, it's largely been doing short-term fixes rather than getting to some of the systemic challenges I think that we have in the state, and we've really got to address that. The estimates of what our shortfall is currently between 150, 200 million, depending on who you talk to. Finding some ways to fund that gap is going to be important. The three big buckets are obviously on the tax piece, the bonding, and tolls. On the taxes, we are going to have to address that as electric vehicles become more prevalent. It needs to be looked at, and I would be willing to look at the other models. Bonding, absolutely, we need to be focused on being able to do a smart approach to hit the correct bonding in order to be able to pay for it. And with respect to tolling, there are lots of interesting ideas that are being kicked around with respect to seasonal tolling, for example, to try to get more out-of-state monies coming in, the fee-for-miles piece, when you check your taxes regularly. But I also think we ought to do some other creative things like bundling bridge contracts to save some money. We have over 350 bridges that are structurally deficient right now, and we need to be able to find smart, creative ways to be able to fund that.
And Mark.
I'm going to answer this in plain English. That's a hell of a theory, all right? It's a great idea, but the process to get it approved through the legislature will probably take 2 terms. I think it's more likely that you could pilot something like this in an appropriate arena so you could get some data that might help convince the public, because the public's going to have to be convinced. If we talk about a vehicle mileage tax, they hear tax, and the first 2 words they don't hear. The gas tax worked. It moved us to be more fuel efficient, but we have to recognize it's evolving, and therefore we will move to a mileage model at some point. But I don't think it's going to happen right away. But I think it's critical to take a look at that and take steps. My background might look like law enforcement, but at its core, it's about gathering evidence and making decisions based on facts and recognizing the reality of a process. 7 years in the legislature, the best ideas take years to get through. All I do know as a legislature is that bonding, any debt instrument, should not be seen as an investment tool. All it does is keep our nose above water on whatever issue it is we're bonding for. So it can't be a long-term strategy, and it's almost like we've become comfortable with the idea that we borrow money to do good. Some other strategy to assess the cost, the impact on our highways has to be developed, and this is at least the opening of a conversation that's going to take some time to realize. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next question. Governor LePage has proposed on 2 different occasions to eliminate the Maine Turnpike Authority and have Maine DOT manage I-95. He's also proposed removing all tolls except for York. The question is, as governor, would you eliminate all tolls except for York and merge the 2 entities? If so, how would you replace the revenue? I'm going to start this one with Mike.
Terrific, thank you. So, look, the fact of the matter is, this isn't the first time this has been discussed. And with the amount of highway miles that currently being taken care of through a gas tax, a shrinking gas tax, you have to ask yourself, okay, what does that do to Maine's budget? Now, I know that there's a proposal that it goes out for 10 years so that the Maine Turnpike Authority can pay down their debt. The fact of the matter is, even after 10 years, my understanding is there'll still be a $200 million debt service that our state will have to pick up. So that's a tremendous amount of debt service. Where do the resources come to plow, sand, and maintain these additional miles? Where does the workforce come from to plow, maintain, and take care of these additional miles? Right now, the Maine DOT is actually contracting with the Turnpike Authority to plow and sand DOT lane miles. I'm not sure how, given all of them factors, how we're going to get that done in a short period of time.
Janet.
Yeah. I did some research in the library when I was in the legislature, wondering whether, I figured there must have been a lot of studies of this whole issue of whether or not the Maine Turnpike Authority can be merged with the DOT take it over. There hasn't been one single study of that, no financial analysis of it. As far as eliminating all the tolls except for York, I think it's part of the myth that only out-of-staters go through the York toll. The revenue would not be easily replaced, and retiring the bonds, several $100 million in bonds, would be extraordinarily challenging. So I would not be ready to say, yes, I would eliminate the tolls and merge the two entities, not without a great deal, a much deeper dive into the whole issue and financial analysis. It's a superficial proposal at this point, I think.
Ken.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Roger. I think what we all know is that in the summertime, the population of Maine explodes. And explodes from people from essentially out of state. And those are people that drive into Maine, they go across the turnpike, and they pay to use that. It's called a fee for use. Now, it seems to make sense to me if we have 40 million visitors a year coming to Maine, a lot of those are driving. It seems to me that we ought to be capturing as much of that money as possible as people come from out of state and drive into our state, and we can capture that fee at that time. I think what we want to look at here is that it's a tax issue because it's a cost. How do we fix our roads and bridges? And you have to have a certain amount of money to do that. Do you want to do that by raising income taxes on the people of the state of Maine? I think the answer is no. And so if you can find a way to use a fee-for-use system, I think that's the proper system. Now, if it's a question of governance between the DOT and the Turnpike Authority, I think that's something the legislature can look at and fix, but I am in favor of the fee-for-use idea.
Adam.
Thank you. Important question, and I say similar things to what Janet said on that. I'm very familiar with this issue coming up. I've heard a lot of people, and I don't want to dismiss any of that. A lot of people have good ideas on how to combine things. I just haven't seen a study behind it. I think if you're going to do, I'm all for smart efficiencies of government. I was mentioning the bundling of the bridges piece. The reason I mentioned that we're just starting to do that in Maine, but other states have been doing that for quite some time. I think if you're going to cut down the tolling, intuitively, that seems to make sense. You get them on the way out, but I haven't seen a study that really looks on the traffic flows, really looks at the costs, really looks at the effects, as well as the merger with the MTA and DOT. So I would want to see some more data on that before I jump in a debate and start championing a policy. I'm all for smart government and saving money and efficiencies, but we gotta have some brains behind it to make sure it's the right thing to do.
Mark.
No merger, not necessary. I have a good experience with the Turnpike, and I think a lot of its consumers do. I'll leave it that way. I think one of the advantages of the Turnpike is the toll system. It is a cost, but as a citizen I bear it, and I'm happy to do it for what I get in return. I would just hope that we could raise other roadway systems to that same level. There's no reason to disturb it. There are more significant issues facing this industry than that.
Mary.
We need stable, secure, reliable funding to take care of our roads and bridges. I would not support eliminating the tolls. If there are opportunities to reduce duplication, to achieve administrative efficiency in the management of our roads between the Department of Transportation and the Maine Turnpike Authority, we should absolutely look at that. I don't think that that necessarily means a merger. But at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that whatever revenues we have, we are effectively committing them to high-quality maintenance of our roads and bridges. And that means having reliable, long-term revenue so that we're not constantly in a crisis-oriented approach and trying to prioritize certain roads over other roads and tie it directly to our economic recovery. Thank you.
Terry.
Thank you. Merging the DOT and the MTA would not be a policy priority in a Hayes administration. There are three things that come ahead of it, if you will, for me. At the top of the list is workforce. Combining those two entities won't help address our workforce needs. Combining those two entities won't help provide a better data infrastructure for Maine businesses, and it won't help improve the health and wellness of Maine people. It would not be a policy priority. I'm not convinced it's broken the way it is. I'm open to new information. If I'm missing something, I welcome folks who can better inform me, but based on what I know about it now, that would not be a priority in my administration.
Sean.
Well, I kind of answered that in the first round, but definitely we don't need those two entities. The physical structure and the administrative cost are redundant, and there's overlap there. That's where the savings are. Those physical structures are worth millions of dollars. And again, we got to start turning some of this tax-exempt property back onto our property tax rolls. Our local towns and communities are getting hit hard. And also to expand on that, every town in Maine has a town public works department, and then they have a facilities department for the school. Again, redundant overlap. See, private sector, we had to, back in 08 when the financial crisis hit, we had to get lean and mean. And the public sector didn't. And they're way behind us in terms of consolidation, efficiencies, and how to manage an operation effectively. These are the things that you live it, you do it every single day in your business. The other thing that's important is you listen to the State of the Union address, $1.5 trillion is going to be flowing into infrastructure in this country. It's going to be very important that we get that match here in the state of Maine and leverage those dollars.
Mark.
Thank you, Senator Cates. Until somebody can answer the question, I haven't heard anybody answer it, about how you would replace the revenue. It's not something we should do. We all talked about the lack of funding, the fact that we're putting Band-Aids on our roads and bridges, bonding $100 million every single year. Until somebody could come to me as governor with that answer, and a credible one, I wouldn't be for it.
Thank you. And Alan.
If there's anything we can be jealous of for New Hampshire, it's that they have mastered the art of shaking down the 40 million people who are coming to Maine. And I think we ought to learn something from that, even though those folks have less money by the time they get to us. The question suggests eliminate all tolls except for York. I'm not sure that's the choice at all. But I think if you tie this question to the last question about not enough revenue, we might want to take a hard look at whether we can increase the tolls at York and keep the others as they are. We certainly can't do anything that's going to reduce revenue. At the same time, we're trying to increase revenue overall. On the question of merger, I don't think the question really is, should there be one entity or two? The question has always been for me, are we spending the right amount of money to maintain the turnpike or not? And as long as the turnpike is making those decisions, that's a difficult conflict for any element of government.
Thank you. It's now time for our first video question on the subject of Buy America. So here we go.
Hi. In recent years, the Maine legislature has taken up bills supporting Buy America or preferences for Maine contractors and businesses. While this sounds like a great deal, it actually could harm Maine businesses or contractors that try to work in other states. What would you, as the next governor, do when presented with a bill like this from the legislature?
We're going to start this one with Mary.
I would veto it.
Terry?
Ditto.
Sean?
Do we get a minute to answer? I'm sorry.
We do.
You don't have to use it.
Okay.
No obligation to use it. But
I just want to take a little time to expand on that. I'm a capitalist, and that's what I believe in is capitalism. And the government interfered with a natural capitalistic cycle back in 08 by bailing out the banks and bailing out the car companies. And we've had a lethargic economy for 8 years, paying $4 a gallon for gas, $4 a gallon for heat and oil. They devalued our dollar. That's what happens when you interrupt the natural cycle, because capitalism only works when there's failure. People that fail, people like us that save our money, and we got some cash on hand, we buy those assets at a discounted price, and that's how capitalism is supposed to work. That's the real way to redistribute wealth.
Mark.
Thank you. I think we got to make it work for everybody. Understand that it's complicated, but if there's a preference of giving Maine workers the job or buying the products here, we should absolutely do that, but understand that it's not that simple, and we need to make sure that it's practical, but I would support Buy America provision.
Alan.
Yeah, building on that, this sounds like an attractive political slogan, but it makes me very nervous, and I'd like to understand, I would need to understand a lot more about why we would do something like that, and who actually benefits, and who actually pays the cost of those benefits. So I would start being deeply suspicious and try to move from there.
Mike.
And thank you, Roger. It's almost a little concerning that Alan and I completely agree on this terrific title, but here's the rub, okay? Does this create jobs in our state, or does this cost our state jobs? The fact of the matter is it creates inefficiencies. It creates a less competitive environment for contracts that would go out, and it will cost our state jobs. I have consistently voted against this terrific title. We all are proud to be Americans. We all want our country to be number one because we love our country, we love our state. But the title is misleading, and it would hurt Maine's economy.
Janet.
Thank you, Senator. These bills have been around for a while, and some of the problems some of the problems that surround them concern how do you determine if a product is truly Maine-made or even American-made when you have component parts that may be made in other countries, other areas. And when it comes to contracting, when you limit it to Maine contractors or Maine labor force, then you invite sort of retribution from other states like New Hampshire and Massachusetts who may want to impose the same kind of restriction, and they're not going to let Maine people work in New Hampshire or in Massachusetts. So those are my concerns. We do have in the contracting system in Maine, when it's a state contract, we have a 5% preference for Maine-based enterprises. And you know that it's not always easy to tell if a business is truly Maine-based. It depends on where you have your base of operations, how many people you employ here, how long, and whether you have a state, an office in this state, that kind of thing. So those would be the challenges of such a bill, and the things I would want to look at very carefully.
Ken.
Thank you. Just to give you a quick example here, the University of Maine at Fort Kent at one point in time was buying its pellets to heat the campus up there. I believe we actually had a bill on this in the legislature. And I believe that we actually passed a bill that said, you can't really buy those pellets in Canada because really Quebec is really subsidizing the cost of those pellets over there. And so, there's an issue here it has real impact there. I traveled and I had an opportunity to go to some mills, some lumber mills in Madawaska the last couple months, up in Jackman last month, Dover Foxcroft. And it's a real issue. People may think, this is not a real issue, but we're talking about, for example, in Quebec, the issue is about free trade versus fair trade. Some of those mills right along the border, whether or not they're cutting trees here in Maine, taking them across the border, whether or not they're doing value added over there. And so when you simply look at the issue of Buy American, it is actually far more complicated. President Trump's talking about renegotiating NAFTA. I think what we need to look at as Maine is we want fair trade, not necessarily free trade.
Adam.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. I would agree. It's a very complicated issue. The slogan piece of it, I really think that the challenges are you don't want to trigger a war anytime these restrictive procurement measures come up. People in New Hampshire come knocking and wondering what we're doing to do some sort of reciprocal piece. The devil is in the details on what you say is Maine-made or American-made. Just looking in the vertical construction field, whether it's windows, fixtures, flooring, however it is, and who has the responsibility to divvy up those components becomes a challenge. So I think that's the biggest challenge was putting forward something like this, how you determine that.
And Mark.
I'm going to build on what Ken said. I agree with him. This is kind of a trick question. It has probably very little relevance for people in southern Maine, but if you go north, we're in the 5th cycle of a trade war with the Canadians over softwood issues. It has to be addressed. So it has a real meaning to folks in the county and other parts of the state. It also has real meaning to the lobster industry and their battles with Atlantic Canada over the fisheries. So as a governor, I don't want to exclude your right to purchase in your best interest for your business enterprise, but I also would hope that some of you would join our efforts to protect businesses, small business, hardworking people in northern Maine who are fighting the Canadians, and they have a legitimate gripe, and we've got to address it.
Thank you all. Next 1-minute question. It's actually two parts. Under what circumstances should state dollars be used to encourage or supplement new energy development? Gas pipelines, Canadian hydro, biomass, wind or solar? Why or why not? And secondly, this past week, the governor issued an executive order establishing a moratorium on wind development that included a, quote, secret, unquote, commission. Do you approve of his decision? Let's start this at the far right, my far right, again with Mark.
Okay, looking at the question here, I've been on this issue for 6 years. Actually, I've worked with Ken, with the Canadians, on the issue of hydropower. I am a big booster of gas pipelines. If we want to shift the cost of energy in Maine, we have to do all we can to build a pipeline so we can access Pennsylvania gas. It's that simple. Our hurdle is to overcome the objections of environmentalists in Massachusetts. I may agree with them on many issues, but this one, they're being short-sighted. All our energy costs are predicated on the cost of natural gas, and volume is not what it should be for Maine. If we want to shift the burden that we're experiencing now, we have to work together to realize pipeline construction. That would be piece one. In terms of the governor's recent executive order, I have to explore as a senator the boundaries of that order and whether or not it's a legitimate application. I did hear him enunciate yesterday that this is not a secret commission, so I don't react. I wait till the facts are in and I'll assess the executive's conduct appropriately.
Adam.
Thank you. Mark's right with respect to supply constraints for gas. That's certainly an issue in the state of Maine and has driven it. You want to know my position on the governor's moratorium and some of his approaches to energy policy, you could read my op-ed in Saturday's Portland Press. But essentially, my view on it is when you look at states throughout the country that have not only the lowest electricity costs, but oftentimes the broadest tax base, a common denominator is that they produce power. There's a common denominator there, and an investment was made and a focus was made by the government at the time. It could have been drilling, it could have been fracking, it could be coal mines, it could be the Tennessee Valley Authority. In the state of Maine, we have great opportunities with respect to clean energy solutions. I think if we're going to control our own destiny, control our costs long term, then we need to look at that, and we need to do it in a smart way. So I'm a proponent of doing that, and I've been pretty clear on that, and I've spent a lot of time in my career focusing on those types of issues. I'd be a huge champion for it as governor. Thank you.
Ken.
Thank you, and Adam, I actually did have a chance to read your op-ed, and I think it was in support of some offshore wind, 23-cent power for renewable energy. We can't afford to pay for huge subsidies, such as wind, solar, and offshore wind. We need to be looking at how Maine can be competitive. You want to talk about mills closing in rural Maine? Those mills are closing because we don't have competitive energy prices. That's the bottom line, folks. They can go down to the southeast and they can get those they can get energy prices a lot cheaper. It makes them a lot more competitive. And so we can't just say, yeah, it's great to do renewables. I've been lucky to be the chairman of the Maine Legislative Advisory Commission. I've had a chance to travel to Labrador to see the dams up there. And most recently, in the last 6 months, I went to St. James River Bay up in Quebec. What they do is they take the same drop of water and they run it through 6 dams or 8 dams and they create electricity. They want to sell that down here, and the reason why that's important is because we have other energy sources going offline which are competitive, such as nuclear, and so we need to really look at this, and I do believe that natural gas and expanding gas line capacity is part of the answer.
Roger, could I respond?
Yes,
that was mentioned?
you were mentioned. Go ahead.
With respect to the 23 cents on the offshore wind, I don't think it's a good comparison because that's essentially a demonstration project. The first time Ford built their first F-150, they probably didn't do it for the price they're completing it at now. The point of it is we are producing power ourselves and coming up and being innovative on our next generation of products to provide for our state. That's why these types of projects are important, that we focus on them and we provide some leadership on them.
Thank you. Janet.
Thank you. I think we're all in favor of renewables and increasing our renewable portfolio. Canadian hydro is problematic because Canadian provinces subsidize their hydroelectric, and they're not going to give us a better deal than what they give their own citizens. And that's been a long-standing issue, a debate about Canadian hydro. The governor's recent executive order, what I'm kind of concerned about is whether it's going to put the kibosh on research and development. We have a very strong research facility. As little as we pay for research in the state, we're 37th in the country in terms of research and development as part of our gross domestic product. But we have this fantastic research facility in Orono, Advanced Composites and Structures Center, and I don't want that, I don't want any moratorium on wind to impact that research that's underway to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. The problem with the executive order is that it creates unpredictability and uncertainty in what government policy is, whether you pick gas, oil, gas, or solar or whatever. Stick with it and be consistent. Don't pick one favorite one week and another favorite another. We can use state money, but not tax credits, PUC contracts, net metering is another form of subsidizing or encouraging through public policy certain forms of renewables without subsidizing it with state tax dollars.
Thank you. Mike.
Well, I think the first thing we ought to do is step back and ask ourselves, what are we trying to do? I think our goal here is to create jobs. So I don't necessarily care what form of energy, how we generate it. I care about one thing. How does that impact jobs in our state? If you can generate power with a hydroelectric plant or a wind farm or a natural gas plant, I don't care how the electron is generated. I care about the cost that electron, the cost of that electron to Maine's consumers, because it's about creating jobs, a competitive market where Maine manufacturers can access low-cost energy. So as a Republican, anytime we mention the word moratorium, I get uneasy. I recognize that there are a few projects in this state that have been proposed that maybe shouldn't have been, but to shut down an entire industry is a little bit concerning.
Mary.
We have got to look at ways in which to improve the affordability of energy in our state. We know that it has been what has caused us to lose businesses, to not be able to attract businesses. But what I don't want is for government to be picking winners and losers. It is much of what we've talked about before. That is not where government needs to be interfering with the private sector. And we cannot have government interfering and creating more financial burden on ratepayers, on taxpayers. We've got to be aggressive in introducing more affordable energy options in the state and get government out of the way so that our businesses, our families have access to lower cost energy options in the state. With regard to the moratorium, I think Mike made a good point. We all know that there have been a variety of policy decisions that have gotten us to this point. Those probably need to be reviewed, but we need to have transparency in anything that government does in evaluating that.
Terry.
Thank you. What I think is kind of interesting as I look over the lay of the land, in the previous administration, Governor Baldacci's administration, a comprehensive energy plan was developed in his last 18 months in office. And it was left for his successor to implement. His successor did not agree with that plan, and currently is in the process of developing a comprehensive energy policy for the state of Maine in the last 12 months of his tenure. I can tell you, I don't know what that will consist of, but I will take a good hard look at it, but I won't wait till my last year in office to see about fixing it and refocusing. I think we should spend state money or allocate tax credits. When doing so, reduces the outflow of our energy needs, the money from meeting our energy needs out of state. That's the place where I think we get the leverage point. And I will tell you, I don't think that public policy should be done behind closed doors. If there's going to be a group of people putting their heads together to come up with something that's going to benefit all of us, it ought to be a public process.
Sean.
Well, there's a big difference between encourage and supplement, right? We all would agree, encourage versus subsidize. We certainly want to encourage all and any types of alternative energy in this state, a broad portfolio. When it comes time to taking tax dollars and investing any of all of the above, we've got to have parity. And I don't think we've had that in the state. And I do agree with the governor. We have to look at the impact. Okay, we've been going up to Moosehead Lake for 30 years. Our family have had the best times in our family's life. And the thought of putting windmills, okay, around those mountains, think about that. That's forever. So I think the governor's smart to say, let's take a hard look at this. How is this going to impact our economy? Tourism is the #1 economy driver here in the state of Maine, and we can't be short-sighted. The other thing that's important, we talk about Canadian hydro, how about Maine hydro? How about investing in Maine hydro? We could replace our current turbines, which are about 40 or 50 years old, with new style turbines that are better on the aquatic life and produce 20 or 30% more power. We should invest in Maine hydro.
Mark.
Well, first of all, I have a strong opinion that the moratorium is a terrible, terrible idea. There is no correlation between our tourism that has been increasing year over year and our wind development. Many of you are involved in that field, and you know as well as I do that that's a terrible idea, and it creates a huge uncertainty. And what government does sometimes is send signals to destabilize different industries, and this is a good example of that. One thing I would do, instead of creating uncertainty, is create markets for folks like our biomass industry that we have been bailing out over the last couple years. For good reason, I would say. I was part of that. And I would do it again. But what I would do if I have another opportunity is create markets for biomass where, whether it's in public institutions of state-owned buildings or public schools, to create incentives so that markets are created. This is something where the unlikely scenario of the Natural Resource Council of Maine and the logging contractors of Maine agree that this is a smart investment, and we have to have an all-of-the-above approach, but we have to do it in a smart way, and if it's going to create jobs here in the state, then that's exactly what we should do.
And Alan.
The people of Maine, all of us, export about $5 billion a year to pay for energy produced elsewhere. We have to do everything in our power to keep as many of those dollars here as we possibly can, reinvesting them in the economy. Maine only produces 4 kinds of energy here: solar, wind, water, and wood. We should and must do everything we can to advance those indigenous local sources of energy. One of those 4 sources of energy is undergoing and at the threshold of a transformative technical change, and that's solar with battery technology. I want to commit the state of Maine to a course that leads us to energy independence with solar power in the lead. Should we invest in new technologies that would benefit us in the long run? You bet.
Okay, that completes our first round of the 1-minute questions, and we're now going to go to our first round of yes or no, and let's see how well they do with this one in terms of yes or no. So we're going to start on my far left with Alan. Should we allow additional casinos in Maine?
No.
Mark?
No.
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 No. Yes for natives.
Number 2, and we'll start with Mark at my far right. Do you support term limits for members of the legislature? Mark?
Maybe.
Excluding for yourself.
No, I'm going to say no. I believe in the voters' decision, not an abstract number.
I'm going to say no. I think it gives too much power to the lobbyists. No offense to those of you in here.
Ken?
I'm serving my 8th year in the legislature, my 4th term. I'm termed out, and I do support term limits.
Janet?
I support them. The people voted to institute them, and there we are.
Mike?
I'm termed out and emphatically yes.
Mary?
No.
No.
Yes, we need them in Congress, big time.
Mark.
I'm going to agree with my wife and say yes, 8 years is enough.
Yes.
Okay, next question. Do you support the sale, production, and use of recreational marijuana for adults? Mike?
I would repeal it in a heartbeat if I could.
Janet?
Yes, properly regulated. The people have voted on this.
Ken?
Yeah, I don't support it, but the people voted for it, and so we need to figure out how to do it.
Adam?
Yes, we need to support the will of the people.
And
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mary?
No.
Terry?
Yes.
Sean?
No, it's an employer's nightmare.
Mark?
Yes.
Alan?
I support respecting the will of the voters, and I think what's happening with the governor, the legislature, disregarding voters, treating them as advisors rather than the boss, is a huge mistake.
So that's a yes, I take it. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. We did so well on the first question, everybody. Okay. In recent years, employers mandated benefits for employees have been considered, in recent years, employer mandated benefits for employees have been considered by the legislature. Do you support mandatory paid sick leave, Mary?
No.
Terry?
No.
Sean?
No, this is an example of government telling us how to run our business. We got to start to tell
Thank
them how
you.
to run their business.
That was a no. Okay, I'm going to be tough now from now on. We're going to shut the mics off after the first word.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes, with caveats.
Alan?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Janet?
Family leave for certain size employers. The president came out for it last night.
Ken?
No.
I'm going to
Adam?
pull a Janet and Mark. Yes, with caveats.
Okay,
Can't hurt the small businesses. My big
And
concern.
Mark?
I'll follow the rules, yes.
Thank you. All right, this is an easy one for a yes or no question. Do you have a current fishing or hunting license, Mark?
No.
Adam?
I did last year. I got to get one for 18.
Ken?
I have a current 2018 fishing license.
Janet?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Mary?
No.
Terry?
No.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
No.
And Alan?
No.
Okay, next. And again, this could be a minute question, but it's not. It's a yes or no question. So would you authorize the Maine State Housing Authority, if you were governor, to use the senior housing bonds approved by the voters? Alan?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Sean?
No.
Terry?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Janet?
Of course.
Ken?
Has to be done properly, yes.
Adam?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Next, if elected, would you create a policy to encourage consolidation of city services like police and fire by county or municipal areas? Yes or no, Mary?
No.
Terry?
No.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Alan?
Absolutely, yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Janet?
Probably.
That's one word. Ken?
House Republicans shut down state government to get this kind of money put in the budget, so yes.
Adam?
Yes.
And Mark?
I guess the rules don't count, yes.
Okay. All right, and again, we would ask you to respect the yes or no questions, answers here. The next one, and then the next to last one in this round. The overwhelming majority of Maine's culverts are inadequate. Municipalities are projected to need to spend $41 to $85 million to replace the highest priority crossings, and will need roughly 14 to 28 million more to build the upgraded structures needed to handle the higher flood levels we now expect. Blocked or perched culverts that create public safety issues and prevent fist passage exist in every part of Maine. Will you support continued funding, either through bonds or another source, to replace undersized culverts? Yes or no? Mark?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Ken?
That was my bond, yes.
Janet?
More than 5 million. Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Sean?
State roads, yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Alan?
Yes.
And last in this round, a citizen initiative proposed raising Maine's top marginal tax rate by adding a surcharge of 3% on household income, including small businesses at the top level. Did you or do you still support or oppose that additional tax? Yes or no? Alan?
No.
Mark?
I did support it, yes.
Sean?
That was a 40% increase on the income tax, not a
That's a no?
surcharge.
Okay.
I did not support it, no.
Terry?
No.
Mary?
Adamantly opposed.
Mike?
No.
Janet?
Did you or do you still, I didn't take a position on that, and I probably don't support it.
Okay. Ken?
No.
Adam?
Support fully funding education, but we need to look at other ways to do it.
And Mark?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll now go back to return to a second round of 1-minute questions. Here is the first one. And again, 1-minute answers if you would. Knowing that Maine businesses prefer certainty, will your energy policy shift to long-term contracts, or will it be based on hopes that the daily spot market is low? And we'll start this one at my far right with Mark.
I think we have an obligation to be predictable and consistent in terms of energy policy. It's not the long-term contract. What hasn't been talked about, the cost of generating an electron is pretty low. It's the transmission and delivery of those electrons that really impacts the cost of your electricity, period. And it's considered a regulated utility, and we need to do more, and we need to take that challenge up. So the spot market for an electron is not what I'm concerned about. It's the cost of delivering the electron.
Adam?
I think this question really gets to the fact, am I on his time or no?
Yeah, can you start the timer, please?
1 minute for all 12 of us? No, I think the issue really gets to the fact that there's a lot of problem, in my view, right now, with the PUC really doing both regulatory as well as policy formation. I think that the governor's office ought to take more of a lead on looking at a long-term strategy for the state. Part of that is long-term contracts. You know, I was involved in a solar deal last year where my client was able to lock in a 20-year contract at below market rates. And these are just smart approaches that we need to be looking at in the state for these types of things. The energy costs make up a big part of businesses' decisions, and taking things on an ad hoc basis with respect to contracts is not a smart approach to it. We need to have a state plan. It needs to be driven by the governor's office.
Ken?
Yeah, as the House Republican leader, I actually had the opportunity to partner with two Democrats, Barry Hobbins and John Cleveland, both as chairman of the Energy Committee, to create and pass the omnibus energy bill. And what that allowed for was the opportunity for Maine to be a leader in the region in a conversation about expansion of natural gas pipelines into the region so that we don't get these high cost periods when we have very cold weather in Maine. And it equals into hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars. And so it is about being a leader, and it's about creating a strategy. And Maine can't be an island on this unto itself. We actually have to look at it as a region. One of the other bills that I put in was a bill to create the Maine Energy Office. We have 3 people that serve in the Maine Energy Office right now, and they're basically federally funded. Down in Massachusetts, they have 60 people down there working on energy issues. Maine needs to be a leader. I've done that with the passage of the omnibus energy bill. We need to continue to look how we can drive down the cost of energy in Maine so that we can keep businesses and young people here.
Janet?
Thank you. I would prefer long-term contracts. My inclination would be to go that route, just for the sake of predictability and reducing the uncertainty in state government actions. As much as I support the university and the research that's going on there now, I was disheartened by the action that Mr. Fredette just described when the PUC issued a long-term contract and then it was undermined by that same omnibus bill. I think it sends a bad messages to people wanting to do business in this state that they can't rely on our word, whether that word comes from the chief executive or the PUC or the Maine legislature. So in the long term, I would support long-term contracts and stick to them.
Mike?
And Roger, most of us in this room realize that we already have 3-year contracts for the standard offer in our state, and that's an attempt to mitigate wild swings in the cost of energy in our state. So we contract for a third each and every year. I think that it's important to make sure that we have some form of predictability. I think that on a limited basis, making strategic investments in long-term contracts makes sense if they're supporting jobs. We have industries, the forest products industry comes to mind, where getting rid of the biomass is incredibly important. And we're very fortunate to have some really great forest products people that have made a conscious decision to invest in some of the latest and greatest technology that is available when it comes to biomass usage. And as part of that investment, they needed a long-term contract. It secures hundreds and hundreds of jobs in the forest products industry.
Mary.
Listen, I think we need to have a comprehensive strategic energy vision for our state. We need solid input from the business community, and we know that we have got to have predictability for businesses in order for those businesses to be able to effectively invest, in order to protect the businesses that we have in our state, in order to attract businesses in our state. So I am certainly in favor of predictability, but I want to make sure that we've got a comprehensive vision that is supporting the long-term goals of promoting affordable energy options in our state.
Terry.
Thank you. I agree with much of what Mary just said, but I would add this. When we adopt, through the legislative process, a significant policy change around any particular industry, I will use the expedited wind law as an example, we should put in that law a specific look-back time period. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 7 years. We should discuss that so that we know when we implement those changes, all of the folks that are impacted by it will know the exact point in time when we're going to stop and assess, did it do what we wanted? Are we getting what we anticipated from that change in policy? If we control putting that in or not. It's not routinely included, and I think it should be, because it provides a time frame where folks know, and it's not long-term necessarily, and it's not, day to day or hour to hour, but there are tools we could use to address it as we're developing policy based on a plan similar to what Mary described.
Sean.
I think the big elephant in the room is delivery. We've talked a lot about energy right now. We've only got 2 major companies, CMP and Emera, that control the delivery systems in the state of Maine. That didn't get deregulated. And we're seeing now with ice storms and more cost, it's going to go right to the ratepayers. And it's going to cost a fortune. So to me, energy is a commodity. We buy year contracts for our propane. We need predictability. So I think it's a matter of negotiating the right term contract. We don't want to be in the day trading business in the energy market.
Thank you. Mark?
As has been said, predictability is everything, and certainty is everything when you're trying to make investments and smart business decisions related to that. So long-term contracts I'd be in favor of, but I think not just in the energy conversation, but long-term planning for whether it's our roads and bridges that we talked about and a whole host of other things that are important to our state. We have to have a longer vision than an election cycle. And we have a great opportunity, I think, 1 year after probably one of us is sworn in, and our next governor. This time next year, we will have a next governor. I hope it's me, but it might not be. It might be Terry. Who knows? But 1 year after that, in 2020, will be our 200th year birthday for our state. And I think an incredible opportunity to engage with our citizens about what they want to see for their state and their kids in 25 and 50 years. So not just energy costs, but I think long-term planning for a variety of things needs to happen for our state.
Alan.
I think we suffered a little bit in this state from too much short-term thinking and not enough long-term thinking. And we saw it in the previous question on energy, where it seems to be the policy of the state is whatever is the cheapest thing today, that's our energy policy. That does not allow for long-term vision and long-term planning, which we must have. Imagine if any of you and your businesses try to develop a new product or a new market or a new location or a new service, and the condition you set upon yourself was that it must make money on the first day. Guess what would happen? In just a little bit of time, your competitors would advance far beyond you, and you would probably go out of business. We have to invest in the long-term future of Maine, and we haven't been doing that in any of the areas we're talking about, and it is killing us.
Okay, next question for a minute answer. We all know people who've been affected by the opiate crisis. As governor, what would your strategy be for turning the situation around? We'll start with Mary.
I actually have had direct experience overseeing our substance abuse programs in the state. My focus was on making sure that individuals who were in need of treatment, that we were urgently getting them into treatment, but more importantly, that the treatment that they were receiving was effective, that we were able to create accountability so that people who are addicted to opiates are able to recover. I also led the charge to deal with the overprescribing of pain medications. I worked with the governor to submit the legislation that limited what doctors could prescribe, because we know that today, over 75% of the people addicted to heroin started with a legally prescribed pain medication. And we have seen the market in this state and across the country flooded with pain pills. So we've got to continue to focus on reducing what has led to our opiate epidemic. We've got to continue to focus on prevention, and we have to make sure that we are appropriately funding effective substance abuse treatment.
Terry.
This is probably the best example, at least in the last 5 years, as we've watched government work or not work in the state of Maine, where partisanship, I think, has been a real challenge. Because it's not just Democrats or Republicans or independents that are negatively impacted by the opioid crisis. These are, by and large, once very productive people whose productivity and capacity to participate in our economy is diminished, and then we lose them. We lose close to 400 people a year. Why haven't we been able to make more serious inroads in improving that? There's really 3 pieces to the puzzle: access, treatment, and law enforcement. And there's been tug-of-wars over which one of those ought to be first or ought to be more of an emphasis. We have to do all 3. What would I do as your governor? Put the people who understand that in a room, put all the tools on the table, all the variety of things that may help us get at it. Look who else is making progress across the country. Toss things that won't work and focus on the things that will together, and give everybody credit for the outcome.
Sean.
Well, I think we need to understand, and we've talked about a lot of issues tonight. This is one of the most important ones. It's ripping our families and our communities apart. The opioid crisis, we have to understand that we're dealing with criminal organizations. Okay, they're the ones that are attacking our most vulnerable populations and forcing drugs into these neighborhoods and these communities. We have to go after them, boost up our drug enforcement and our law enforcement. These are criminal enterprises. Secondly, we've got to treat peer-to-peer. If you haven't been an addict, you're not going to be able to effectively navigate an addict to sobriety. It's got to be a lot like AA, with peer-to-peer support with sober houses. I think that's the best path that we need to take. The third thing is education. I remember when I was a kid, you remember seeing the egg in the frying pan and said, this is what you're going to do to your brain if you do drugs? That's exactly what we need to do. We need to get serious about education and scare and educate our young adults. They're the vulnerable ones that we're blocked out of our economy and our labor. We need them back in our businesses.
Mark.
Yep, I remember that one, Sean. This is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs. It's a powerful message, and responsibility does start at home. But this opioid crisis is killing our people, and it's killing our economy, and it's killing our workforce. It is a tragic thing that again today, a mom, dad, aunt, uncle, son, daughter got a call that their loved one died. I think it's one of the biggest moral failings that we haven't been able to figure this one out together. I agree with Terry. This is not a partisan issue. We've got to do this together. We have to make sure that when people are ready to get treatment, that there is treatment available. One of the biggest tragedies, I think, is we've got great programs led by law enforcement like the Scarborough Police Department, Operation Hope, great program. People go in, they turn over their paraphernalia, they don't get arrested. The police department helps them get treatment. The tragedy is, what they do is they put them on a plane, pay for the airline ticket, down to Florida, North Carolina, Colorado. We can't solve our own problems for our own people. It's out of control. It takes true leadership, and we can't just lock people up. We got to understand this as prevention, education, treatment, and access. And as governor, it would be a top priority for me.
Alan.
I lost a nephew to this problem a few years ago. He was a sweet kid. I used to babysit him when he was young. And I want to remind us all of where this problem really comes from. What's the root of this problem? It's not people at the bottom. It's not people in the middle. It's a national government that has done the bidding of pharmaceutical industries over and over and over again. So I know that won't be said often, but it needs to be said. I have watched from the sidelines with dismay at what the two parties have done on this issue. One says it's all about punishment. The other one says it's all about treatment. What happened to common sense? What happened to common purpose? It's lacking. This is again why I'm running as an independent, because I think we need the best ideas and the best people from across the spectrum to be pulled together and to do the things that must be done.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Look, I don't think anybody that's sitting in this room right now has the exact right answer to this problem. It is killing our state. It's killing our nation. States all across our nation are dealing with this very same issue. What have we done? Well, I was very proud of the fact that I sponsored the bill that funded 10 new DEA agents for our state, trying to stem that flow of poison that's coming in, trying to keep these criminals from feeding this to our children and our friends. But at the same time, that also created 10 detox beds in Bangor, Maine. The fact of the matter that we didn't have a detox bed in central or northern Maine was a huge problem. It isn't just bad people that have this problem. It is affecting our entire society, and we've got to work on the issue together, but I don't think any of us can identify the exact right solution.
Janet.
Thank you, Senator. This is a problem that's affecting your workforce, the workforce in aquaculture, agriculture, teaching, every aspect of our lives. Every employer is seeing this, and we had 952 drug-affected babies born last year, 1,024 born the year before. This is a terrible epidemic. I believe I'm the only person at this table who's actually issued a 10-point plan to address the opiate epidemic. It's not a matter of arresting our way out of here. It's a matter of distributing Narcan across the state. I supported the governor in the bill that Mary mentioned to cap prescribing practices, and we worked across the aisle to help make that happen. We've got to provide detox beds and a hub and spokes kind of treatment module as they have in Vermont, which is working. I have personally distributed Narcan across the state of Maine and talked to schools. We have saved more than 307 lives just with the Narcan I have distributed to police departments. I've got a 10-point plan. I intend to implement it on day one.
Ken.
You know, Adam Cody, sitting beside me, served in the military, and I served in the military. If there's a statistic that you should remember when you leave here, it's this. More people die every day in America than the people that died in the entire Vietnam War from drug overdoses. It's a national tragedy. It's a national embarrassment. And the Maine legislature has failed to properly address this issue. As I look back on my 8 years in the legislature, we've done some great things. One of the areas where we failed is properly addressing the drug overdose issue in Maine, where 1 person a day dies from a drug overdose. Gangs have moved into Maine. Drugs come across the border freely. We've legalized recreational marijuana. We've got a big problem, folks. How many people in this room, including my own family, has someone in it that has a drug problem? My family does. It's a big issue. I have a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old child. This is an issue that needs to be the top issue for the legislature and the next governor of the state of Maine.
Adam.
Thanks, Roger. I don't think anybody here disagrees on the fact that this is a massive problem, and I agree. We had 3 overdoses in my hometown within a 12-hour period. Everybody has stories about that. You can go to Falmouth or Presque Isle or wherever. Everywhere in this state, this crosses socioeconomic and geographic grounds everywhere. The question becomes, how do we approach it? And I think that while I'm in agreement that law enforcement plays a big part of that, I have talked to many folks in law enforcement. I was in the county last week, and the first thing I asked the chief of police in Presque Isle was, what do you need for opioids? And he said, counseling. I need services for people. We need to start treating this like a chronic illness and an addiction like it is. We treat people who drink too much, smoke too much, eat too much. We recognize that these are addictions that people have, programs and policies set up for them. We need to address it in the county jails as well. One of the highest rates of overdoses are people that just get out of jail afterwards, and we're not getting the counseling there that we need. So we need a comprehensive approach that treats it as an addiction.
Mark.
This issue really strikes home. I spent 32 years in law enforcement. I've arrested dealers. I've rolled people over and touched their throat because it was cold and they were gone. Junk is bad. It kills people. They're not moral failures. It's the disease. They made some decisions they shouldn't have, but then they're caught in that cycle, and you don't get out. You can get recovered, you can become treated, you can become human again, but you never get out. It's a lifetime issue. You can't arrest your way out of it, but there's a lot of talk here about interventions. I want to have a moment to say what we need is a long-term commitment to recovery, to providing housing and resource and jobs. And I only got a few seconds left, but let me say this. I want to say thank you to this industry. When I was sheriff and trying to help addicts get a job, some of you took that risk. Some of you were willing to take that journey with them, and I'll be forever thankful. I'm going to go over my minute for a second because this is too important. When I walked in here tonight, out there's a booth, Maine Recovery Fund. Margot Walsh, she's an angel. She came to me years ago and said, what can we do for these addicts? She's getting them jobs. She's doing what's important. Her and her colleagues recognize it's a commitment to forever when you're battling opiate addiction. And this is one industry that has had the compassion to open its doors and allow people to go to work despite their records. And if you need to be convinced, then you come to me with the jail. And when there are 2 or 3 dozen men and women vomiting, sweating, shaking, trying to get through this, you can make your pledge to work with us to help addicts come back, because they come from all walks of life and all families, and you'll do more good for your community by giving that one job than any one of us will do in government. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last 1-minute question is a video question on college debt and skilled workers.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Kirschbergen. I currently work for Maine DOT, and I'm on the Sarah Mildred Long Bridge Replacement Project. I'm also a member of NAWIC and have been a member for 6 years. Everyone is concerned about the lack of skilled workers, and at the same time, Maine ranks 7th in college debt. 48% of Maine college students do not meet the math standard, and 63% believe their student debt hinders their financial stability. This year, AGC Maine will launch a new apprenticeship program for high school students to expand opportunities. Yet, other countries, like Switzerland, start career exploration, including 2 or 3 days of on-the-job training at the age of 15. Is it time to change the education system in Maine?
Okay, is it time to change the education system in Maine? In 60 seconds or less. We'll start with Mark.
Yes. Yes. Listen, I think we missed the boat. My generation grew up being told that everyone had to go college. That was the success path. And I don't think that's the case. I think we lack tradespeople today because of that message. I should have been told there's value in being an electrician or a pipe fitter or a welder or operate heavy equipment. I envy my brother because he actually moves earth with big machines, and I'm still a kid when I see that. He didn't get that message. He got a different message than I did. Maybe that's why we're all lawyers primarily up at this table. We were told that was success. And I think in the schools, we need to bring back industrial arts, start preparing young men and women to join your industry and being told that they are a success for doing so.
Thank you. Yes, Adam.
Any business you talk to in this state, workforce development training is a huge issue. Every hometown in this state, it's harder to find a plumber, electrician, a finished carpenter, or a mason than it is to find a lawyer. This is a massive problem in the state of Maine. I think there are several things that we need to do to start encouraging our young people to get back into it. First, most of our CTEs, career technical education schools throughout the state, I think we need to walk it back a little bit. Currently, they're starting to get in there about their junior year, but we're losing a lot of these kids after 8th grade. I think they need to be introduced to this, the importance of the trades earlier. I think we need to encourage the internship and apprenticeship programs, and of course, the community college programs as well. But I'll also say we need a skilled worker plan that addresses that 53-year-old mill worker who gets out, maybe get laid off, isn't going to go to a 4-year, isn't going to go to a 2-year, but a 6-week training program in the trades will put them back in the workforce. I think that's critical, and it's going to be critical for the importance of Maine as we start filling our workforce and growing.
Ken.
Thank you. So I'm lucky to have 2 children, both that are in college in Bangor at Hudson University. And, you know, one of those students has a fairly significant amount of debt. The other day she texted me and she said, I'm applying for a job in North Carolina. You know, you get concerned that that's the story of Maine, because I need to go there because I can earn more money to pay back my debt. I've had an opportunity to go to Bath Iron Works, go to Chimbro, look at their apprenticeship programs. They're great programs. I've been to our community colleges. I've been a strong community of our community college to work on the trades. And some folks will decide to go to the universities or the private colleges here in Maine. Everybody needs to find their niche. And they need to have skin in the game. And the state of Maine has a role to play in this. Most recently, I put forward a bill, a student loan repayment bill, which did not make it through Ledge Council. Senator Thibodeau voted against that bill. It was a way for us to be able to have a conversation about whether or not we should be dealing with student loan debt. I think we need to be dealing with it. I think we need to have employers have skin in the game, students have skin in the game, so that we can have a comprehensive approach to solving this problem.
Janet.
Thank you. We have about 30,000 people between the ages of 19 and 64 who are not working and apparently not looking for work, and are also not on disability. We've got to find places for them to go and get trained up. I know that I applaud the apprenticeship programs that the AGC has developed, and I know that they're not just for young people, they're for displaced workers. Let me say, I like to think I put my money where my mouth is. 3 years ago, I had a lawsuit against bath fitters, my office did, for not using licensed plumbers and what they did. They paid $500,000 as a forfeiture to my trust fund. I said, what am I going to do with that? I checked around the VTIs. I took that money and I started a plumbing program at Biddeford High School, Lewiston High School, Oxford Hills High School, and Mount Blue High School, Foster Tech. And I said, get some young women in those programs. And so the highest achieving person in the Voc Tech school in Mount Blue last June was a young woman in the plumbing program that I started.
Mike.
And thank you, Roger. This is about workforce development. And we ought to at least understand what we are doing as a state when it comes to that issue. The fact of the matter is that our state is making a significant investment in keeping the cost of higher education down to the tune of $100 million every year to the University of Maine system, trying to keep tuition down so it's affordable to people from our state that want to go in further education. You know, we've got a terrific community college system that is working closely with employers to develop programs that train these students for exactly the right skill set to fill the jobs that these employers need filled. We're very fortunate that they're working hand in glove with would-be employers. But I want to suggest to you that indeed, Maine's education system is changing every day, and in large part because of folks in this industry. Think about it. We have the Chimbro Institute. How about Sargent Academy? And of course, Margot and the work that she's doing with drug-addicted people. You aren't waiting for government to fix this for you. You're tackling the issue yourself, and I want to congratulate you on doing that.
Mary.
So I love that AGC developed those player cards and went into the high schools, and on those cards it had the picture of the electrician, the welder, the plumber, and on the back it explained to these high school students, this is what it's going to take for you to get this job, and this is what you can expect to make in the first year. And I know that AGC did that because they were very frustrated that high schools were not promoting these jobs as incredible career pathways, as good paying jobs. We don't have our schools aligning with where the jobs are in our state. I don't think that the community colleges are doing enough to prioritize these programs. The state has got to create an incentive for our middle schools, our high schools, and our community colleges to develop the programs that are directly related to where the jobs are. And we have got to stop this elitist attitude that has looked down upon these jobs and prioritize and respect how critically important it is to have plumbers and electricians and welders and make sure that we're effectively supporting those pathways.
Terry.
I want to piggyback on something that Mike said, and it relates to the conversation I had with Steve earlier from Sargent. Not every solution has to come from government. The question the young lady asked on the video was, do we need to change education? Well, probably, but not to solve this particular problem. It's not the only path. You folks are already doing it, and you didn't wait for government to tell you how. We don't need a program for everything, but we need to know if government is doing something that's getting in the way, or that's making it harder for those kinds of collaborations with the local school system, with the community colleges, with the colleges and university campuses. You need to let us know if there are barriers that are making it harder for you to do that. But for the most part, you had a good idea and you went out and you implemented it, and you're growing your own expertise and letting young people in your communities know that these jobs exist. I want to applaud that, and I want to make sure we're not doing things in government that make it harder.
Sean.
Let's be clear. Our greatest asset is our people. And we've blocked out a whole generation of teenagers from the workforce. The labor laws are so strict that to hire someone at Moody's, the only thing they can do till they're 18 is push a broom. I started working when I was 12, 13, probably like a lot of you did. That's when that work ethic is established. It doesn't start at 20, 22. It's too late. And these young people want a pathway to get into the trades. As governor, this is a real passionate part of me. Governor LePage appointed me to the University of Maine System Board of Trustees and the Community College System Board of Trustees. Nobody ever served in that capacity to get those two systems working together. And the next job that we got to do is reform K through 12 education. It's the biggest double standard that exists in America today. And I will vow that we will reform our CTE programs and our VOC programs to be the best in the country. I'm a blue-collar guy, and we can do it.
Mark.
Thank you. I think the apprenticeship program that AGC is charging ahead with this year is exactly what we need to do, and I'm with Sean on this. In 10 years, what I want parents and students to be to be proud of is the fact that their kids went through a vocational training program that led to a good job and they're not saddled with debt. There's two examples that I'll share really quickly with you. When I was Speaker of the House for 4 years, one of the greatest pleasures of my time in the State House was to be able to get out of the State House, travel around the state. One trip that I took was up to Frenchville, St. John Valley Technical Center, where we sat with about 30 different loggers to talk about what they needed. And it's exactly what's been talked about on this panel. It is a partnership with private industry that we seed money where private investment is made and training programs that lead to good paying jobs. So there are 3 community colleges in the northern part of the state right now where that program is rotating. I mentioned Brad Farron on the way in. He was a Republican partner on the other side of the aisle to make sure that this happened. First graduating class happened this past September. Every single kid that graduated from that program has a job. They don't have debt. The reason they have a job is because we listened to what those workforce needs were on the ground, and that is the path to a middle wage lifestyle back in Maine.
Alan.
There are 2 problems with college debt, 2 sides of a coin. One is that we're impoverishing a generation of young people who are not going to dig out of that debt in the way that others have in the past. That means they can't buy homes as quickly, if at all, and other things that we're all producing. The other is the cost of education. We're a state with a population roughly the size of Greater San Diego. Imagine our 2-tier college system in San Diego. You would say it was insane. So we have to right-size the system, and we have to find a way for young people to get the education they need in the 21st century without being impoverished. I have a proposal that we need to work on, and that is to make Maine a state which offers 2 years of college for free in a contract with students that they must then stay and work in Maine for a period of time. And every year they do that, they'll have no loan payment and their debt will decrease.
Thank you. We're almost done. So we got one more round of rapid fire questions, yes or no. And we're going to start down at this end with Alan. Do you feel Maine schools are adequately funded, yes or no?
No.
Mark?
No.
Sean?
They're overfunded. We need to get them to be more efficient and more effective.
Terry?
No.
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
At 55%.
Janet?
No.
Ken?
Yes.
No. No.
Next, would you sign a bill to mandate home economics and industrial arts in middle school? Mark?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't mandate it. I'd offer it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Mike?
No, I guess I'd just say it's a local decision.
Okay. Janet, you answered.
Yeah, I answered.
Mike?
No.
Mary?
Yes.
Terry?
No.
Sean?
Yes, we need common sense.
Mark?
Yes.
And Alan?
Yes.
Next, do you support reducing the size of the House and Senate, Mary?
Yes.
Terry?
No.
Sean?
No.
Mark?
I'm open to it.
You bet.
Alan?
Absolutely.
That would say yes. And Mike?
Yes.
Janet?
No.
Ken?
No.
Yes.
Adam? And Mark?
No.
Have you held a paddle in your hands and used it to paddle on one of Maine's lakes, rivers, or ponds, Mike?
Not very effectively, but yes.
Janet?
Of course.
Ken?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Terry?
Every summer.
Sean?
Photos right on our website.
Mark?
Yes.
And Alan?
Many times.
Okay. We've talked today about the gas tax, highway funds, and the growing reduction of fossil fuels in power vehicles. So the question is, what did you drive here today? By the way, if it was a V8, it looks like a heavy-duty truck. The lot is full of them out there. So, Mark, we'll start with you. What did you drive here today?
Can I speak to council first?
We're assuming that everybody's license is current, so go ahead.
It's a killer, a Volvo all-wheel drive sedan.
Adam.
I have an 08 Highlander to carry my 5 kids around.
Ken.
A used Infinity.
Okay. Janet.
3-year-old Honda CRV.
Mike.
Ford Taurus V6.
Mary.
Honda HRV.
Terry.
Toyota Corolla IM.
Sean.
09 GMC, 140,000. She's paid for.
Mark.
My fiscally conservative Prius.
All right. And Alan.
Toyota Highlander Hybrid.
Okay, next. Will you hold regular meetings with the media and grant press access routinely? And I'll remind you, this portion is being filmed. Mark.
Yes. Yes.
It depends on how they treat me. Yes.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Mary?
Yes, I always have.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, 2 more to go. What is your favorite magazine, and what was the last book you read, Alan?
Golf is the magazine, and the book is Maine's Next Economy, which I wrote.
Mark.
Maine Magazine. I think it's a beautiful magazine. And the last book I cannot remember. I read a lot of regulations because the company that I run is highly regulated.
Sean?
I'm not much of a magazine buff, and the last good book I read was Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Terry?
I can't remember the last time I picked up a magazine, but the last good book that I read was called Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. I highly recommend it.
Mary?
I guess we all suffer on the magazine front. The last book I read was 1 Second After.
Mike?
I'm trying to remember, Roger.
Janet?
Want to borrow a magazine? I read the Down East magazine and the New Yorker. I have a subscription to, and I read something called After the Eclipse, a nonfiction book about a murder case in Maine. Maine authors are my favorite.
Ken?
Down East Magazine. I read bits and pieces of the Bible frequently, but the last book I read cover to cover was a leadership book written by Ron Heifetz.
I don't read a lot of magazines, but for 2 books that we've been reading, one, Harry Potter, we're on book 3 with our kids, and I just finished a book on Ken Curtis that was written by Kermit Lopez about his time as governor.
And Mark?
I do a lot of newspaper reading, so I would say the Bangor Daily was the last that I read, and the book I just finished was the new Jim Crow.
Okay, and the last question, nobody said Sports Illustrated, but this last question is, name your favorite Patriot player not named Brady. Alan?
Gronk, gotta be.
Stole it. Gronk.
Leon Lewis.
Edelman.
Gronk.
Mike?
Edelman.
Oh, Gronkowski.
Edelman, he's a small guy.
Definitely Edelman, but Amendola was born in Waterboro. I wish he'd have stayed.
And Mark?
Amendola.
Well, thank you all, and now it's time for the 1-minute closing statements by each of the candidates, and we're going to start at my far left with Alan. And we're going to, 1 minute apiece, please.
About 50, is this on?
Everyone
Is this
except
on?
Mark, that is. Go ahead.
Oh, did you want to start at that end or this end?
Alan?
I managed for about 50 years to avoid running for office very successfully, but I felt compelled now to run because I think this is a moment of great opportunity for Maine to lay the foundations of the next economy. I've been working on that issue for a long time. I didn't start thinking about it when I decided to run for office. In order to do that, we must invest more in the bottom of the economy. I mean by that, pay less attention to the big guys, they can take care of themselves, and put the machinery of government behind the little guys who are actually building jobs and creating opportunities every day. We have to have a more modern, more efficient government, and we must find a new unity in Maine. We are competing with people around the world who are killing us, trying to take our best jobs every day. Division is a luxury we can't afford.
Mark?
Thank you, Senator Cates, and thank you for moderating. I think you did a fantastic job. I'm running for governor because of my kids. I got 3, as I mentioned before. They're 13, 11, and 8. And we talk about Maine in 10 years, in the next decade, and what Maine they're going to grow up in. My oldest will be 23, my middle will be 21, and my youngest will just be finishing high school at 18. I want a Maine where they are proud of their elected leaders, where integrity matters and character matters, again, in public office. I think what I've heard around the state as I've traveled is that is what's lacking, and that is why we cannot solve some of our biggest problems. So whether it's funding our education system, we might have some different ideas, or healthcare, our workforce, and creating jobs, but we're not going to get anything done if you don't elect leaders that can work well with others. And for 8 years, that's what I did. I don't know if it's because of my upbringing, because of my parents, the background as a family therapist, the work that I did with families living in poverty in rural parts of our state, or the time that I spent in the State House. But I know that we need integrity back in elected office. We need to be able to do that effectively. I spent 4 years in the Speaker's office traveling the state, developing partnerships with businesses, and I didn't care if they're Republican, Democrat, inside or outside of the State House. If you wanted to solve problems for people, I was there. I hope that you look at this campaign and I ask for your vote.
Sean.
I'm running for governor for you, the working people. In running a business, we deal with health insurance costs going through the roof. We deal with the taxes. We deal with the onerous regulations, trying to get our shops permitted. We've grown from just 10 co-workers to 185 co-workers at 11 locations across the state. I love this state. I'm not going anywhere. And I just want to reiterate what I started off with. If you're looking for, a legislator, a lawyer, a lobbyist, we have a lot of great candidates here that care about the state of Maine. But if you're looking for a business guy, there's only one person up here, I think, that has that proven track record of success or how to grow. So the reason I'm running is for the working people, and I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to turn Augusta back over to the politicians.
Terry.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking AGC, its members, Machias Savings Bank, and all of you who've sat here and listened to our responses. We are all in this together. There's very little that occurs in Augusta that impacts, if anything, only the Democrats or only the Republicans or only the independents. And we lose sight of that. We're small. I mean, I heard an earlier reference to San Diego. We're about the size of Greater Memphis, Tennessee, just stretched out over a lot more geography. We look for the things that separate us and we magnify them, and they get in the way, so we can't do important work like addressing the opioid crisis in a time frame that we would all want. I'm the only independent clean elections candidate running for governor. I will be beholden only to Maine people, no special interests. I will never put a party outcome or party preservation ahead of the people of the state of Maine. I need your help to win. I look forward to talking with you when we're done.
Mary.
Thank you. I'm running for governor because I am so proud of the accomplishments we've achieved over the last nearly 7 years in the LePage administration, and we've done that by making the tough decisions. I took on an agency that has had a stranglehold on our economy, that was routinely hemorrhaging red ink and had distorted priorities, and that led to the tax burden in our state that has been robbing the paychecks of hardworking Mainers and taking money out of businesses. There are businesses in this state that don't feel valued, appreciated, or respected. They just see one more nail in the coffin coming from Augusta. What I know is that what's going to put our state in the right direction to be able to compete with states like New Hampshire, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida is we've got to eliminate our income tax. We've got to stop growing government, and we've got to support job growth in our state. I'm the only candidate that has the track record of having made the tough decisions to end that uncontrolled spending in Augusta and in government, and to promote economic activity in our state. Thank you. I look forward to your support.
Mike.
Roger, I just want to say, I want to be clear, nobody on this stage has more business experience than I do. I took a small company from a single employee to one that had over 200 employees that me and my brothers built. My brother Vaughn and I own a New Holland tractor dealership in Bangor, Maine. My wife and I own a small injection molding company making the only made-in-Maine snow shovel. I understand what you deal with as businesses. I understand the impact of the decisions that we make at the State House on your businesses, on your lives, and your ability to create more jobs and to build a stronger company and indeed grow Maine's economy. I think I've got the perfect skill set of knowing how to get things done at the State House, as well as the impact that the decisions that are made at the State House have on your business and your ability to be successful. I'd ask for your support. Thank you.
Janet.
Thank you, and thank you for having us. Thank you all the members of the AGC and for everything that you do. I know the challenges you're facing. I want to work with you. You will be at the table so that we can together address the workforce needs of Maine's economy right now. Together we will address the opiate epidemic and fight back. Together we will put the welcome mat out for Maine to invite workers and families from all over the country and all over the world and contribute to our workforce in Maine. We'll bring back the state planning office so we have that kind of expertise to help cities and towns plan and help you plan developments. We'll work on the culvert issue and replace those thousands of culverts all over the tributaries of the Kennebec and the Penobscot rivers. We'll work across the aisle. Fundamentally, I want to be the state's biggest cheerleader. I want to tell the world what a great state we have, what great people we have, what a good workforce we have, what a good business environment that we have, and we will improve on that together. Thank you for having me at this forum.
Ken.
Thank you, Roger, and there you go again, Sean. I'm not going to apologize for growing up in rural Maine and being the first of my family to graduate from college. When I actually graduated from law school, I decided to go back to rural Maine and work in an area with 70% free and reduced lunches. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for spending the last 8 years working in Augusta for $10,000 a year trying to fix Maine's problems. Because you know what? Leadership matters. It matters because when we started the work in 2010 with Governor Paul LePage, we had 9% unemployment in this state. We now have virtually full employment. 8 years ago, we had a structural gap of $1.2 billion. We reduced that to about $150 million. We owe the hospitals $750 million, and we paid that debt back to the hospitals. And we had one of the highest income tax rates in the country. And working together with Governor LePage, we did 3 significant income tax cuts starting back in 2010 when Roger and I served on the Appropriations Committee. So we've made a lot of difference. We've made a lot of change. I want to be your governor. We have a lot of more work to do. Thank you.
Adam.
Well, hey, I recognize Mark and I are the only thing standing between you and the open bar, so I'm going to cut right to the chase. The core fundamental issue facing the next governor, I don't care who it is the fact that we've got the oldest population in the country. We've got a stagnant population. We're facing a demographic cliff right now, and we need to find a way, and you need to come into this office with a plan on how to grow our economy in all parts of the state. And that is the fundamental driver of every question we answer here. We can be cute, we can be folksy, we can tell little personal stories, but the matter is, if you get into that office and you're reactionary, you're in big trouble. My view is it's on 3 things. It's infrastructure, it's workforce training, it's focusing on our competitive advantages. We can transform this state so it is the type of place where young people want to be, they want to stay, they want to innovate, they want to become entrepreneurs. I'm convinced it takes new leadership without the large focus of why you're running on what you did in Augusta. It needs to be somebody that's going to come in with a plan to do it. I hope you take a good look on what we're trying to do in our candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark, I think you used up some of your time before, but I think you've got about 30 to 40 seconds
that's
left,
fine.
so go ahead.
I'm not going to hold this great audience from what should be happening next. I want to be your next governor because I think a governor should be someone that when you shake hands, it means something. I think a governor should be someone that actually hears what you have to say, that he can look in the mirror in the morning and know that he doesn't have the answer to everything, but be humble enough to reach out and ask people who might have that information what should happen next. I've spent 40 years in public service. I've seen it at the city, at the county, and at the state. And I have never seen any success happen without a team effort. That's how it works. I think that's what occurs in private business. It also occurs in the public sector. I want to be a governor that recognizes the value of the efforts put out by my legislative colleagues. It's almost like it's a bad taste issue that we're in politics. I'm honored to be in politics, and I respect the commitment
If you could summarize,
of my colleagues who've participated. I'm asking for your vote. I care about people. It's not about programs. It's about the people that make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think what we've seen up here today is 10 bright, thoughtful, accomplished people, all of whom want to be governor of the state of Maine. And I just want us to keep in mind what a difficult task it is to run for public office, to put your ego out there, to subject yourself to the kinds of criticism that seems to happen today in our political world. And I hope that we can all now thank these 10 extraordinary people for being here and sharing their vision for Maine's future.